can't wait to be legislated to start recycling solar panels.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today is June 6th, 2023. I'm Eric Planey.
I am Lucas Finko.
I'm Janette Freeman.
Well, welcome, Janette. And together, the three of us today are the Pirates of Clean Tech. Yar!
Yar.
Janette went with a little bit of the visual. She did a little bit of a pirate head.
Arr! We need to practice. Arr!
There you go. Janette and I started corresponding on LinkedIn a few weeks back, and we were so fascinated by the business model that Janette is participating in. We thought she would be the perfect guest for Pirates because we feel her company's solution is really something that's being talked about and needs to be talked about more and more, and that is recycling of clean energy materials. So, Janette, before we get into the company, why don't we talk a little bit? And I think I actually called the company Freeman. That's your last name. It's really FabTech. So why don't we talk a little bit about yourself first, and then we can go into talk a little bit about FabTech.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric and Lucas. Good to be here. So I'm pretty new to renewable energy. I started with FabTech just 3 years ago. And before that, I worked in starting and founding and running nonprofits for the last 20 years, and was also a public speaker and a content generator in the area of personal development. And my brother-in-law and sister actually own FabTech Solar Solutions. And so about 3 years ago, we were talking, and they had this business that was just going crazy busy. And it was growing and they were expanding. And then they asked me to come on and develop this side of the business with recycling and building up our recycling network and recycling business, as well as finding those used panels to supply our other side of the business, which sells used solar panels into the marketplace. So that's how I got in, and they brought me in because I have a wide range of skills in marketing, business development, and also in running businesses. So it's been an exciting and brand new venture for me and for them, and it's been working quite well. So that's my piece.
It's a fantastic one, and I imagine there's a little bit of an overlap between the mission of FabTech and your experience with nonprofits.
Yes.
I feel that there's a coinciding, if you will, of the mission, which is great.
Yeah. And it really is good for somebody like me who's always been mission driven and needs to put my time and energy into something that's making a difference. And I've always been interested in environment and the planet and doing things clean. And so it's just a great fit.
Hi, Janette. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about your business model. And how do you source used panels? Can you give us some more details about this?
Yeah, let me give you the big picture of FabTech. Okay, so our business model, first of all, is that we provide the solutions for panels that are no longer needed wherever they're at. So we deal a lot with larger scale, I'll put it that way. We deal a lot with utility scale, solar farms, large commercial farms, anything, or not farms, but commercial rooftops, that sort of thing, because it's bigger numbers. So when a panel comes to the end of its normal life, it may be broken and it may not be broken. So we try to find the right solution for that. If a panel is broken, that means it goes into recycling. We'll go into that a little bit later. It needs to be recycled instead of landfill. But if that panel is still working or can be fixed, there is no reason to dump that solar panel. It can be reused, and it can fulfill a lot of really useful purposes. So FabTech provides recycling if the panel is broken, or it provides reuse. Now, the economics of that, and if I jump ahead, you can reel me back in. The economics of it are quite simple. It costs money to recycle. It's a push it's been a push to get companies to budget for recycling versus landfilling, because the practice has been landfilling those solar panels, but that is not sustainable, and that will not be sustainable as we go into the future with the volume of solar installations that are now taking place and will continue to take place. So recycling right now it costs money. It costs money. It may be anywhere from $15 a solar panel up to $40 a solar panel to recycle those things. So
Wow.
it's expensive. Not to mention the freight to get it to the recycling center. So if a panel can be reused, if it has some life in it, that panel now has value instead of a cost to recycle. So we would buy those panels and pay for those panels, which could offset the cost of freight and offset the cost of recycling. Okay, so thinking that is the one-stop shop for end-of-life solar panels. Find the best solution, the most economic solution to keep them out of the landfill, which is the goal. Now, on the other side of the story is like, okay, so then what happens with those panels? Who buys those used panels, right? Then on the other side, there's another company that we also own, which is just simply the brand and the reseller of used solar panels to the consumer market. So we sell direct to the consumer, used solar panels in quantities of 1 or 2 to several pallets. So that's typically the do-it-yourselfer. That's typically somebody with an RV. That's somebody that's living out of their RV, their home, their ranch, that's doing off-grid solar, putting those up on off-grid farms, pumps, pool pumps, that type of thing. So the business model, so I think did I answer that? That's the business model. We get this one-stop shop. We're going to solve that end-of-life solar panel issue.
Well, let me take it from there a little bit, because I was going to go into it before going to our next question. You kind of hinted on it, but how do you determine, or who is it that determines that solar panel that's maybe deployed utility scale somewhere does have useful life left? Do you have to go and inspect it, or do you ask the seller to provide you just hard data that you can then extrapolate how the cells are performing? Like, how do you make that determination?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most of the time, we do not have to go inspect the solar panels. The information that we get from them is usually pretty accurate. Number one, is the solar panel broken glass? If it's broken glass, we know what it needs. We can't do anything with it. If it's coming off because, let's say it's coming off a decommissioned of like a Target, something like that. There's a lot of those type of projects that are being decommissioned now because they've been up there 10 years and they've been working, but they're maybe not as they've had a certain amount of degradation, which is normal. Okay. I mean, we can tell that, and most of the time they can take a couple of pictures of those solar panels so we can see the face, we can see if it's got yellowing of the cell. You can see the front of that solar panel and we can know why it's coming off, and we can feel pretty confident of what's the results we're going to get. Other times we may want to go out and inspect because maybe there's 20,000 or 10,000 panels or something. We might want to go inspect and do some quick little testing. But usually the large sites have their own engineers and test and have the data on the panel, and it's not incredibly complicated. Those solar panels are very durable. They're very sturdy.
Right.
And unless something's happened to them, lightning storm or some sort of weather or a fire or a situation where it's blown out strings. And even in that case, if it's electrical, we can fix that. It's usually rewiring or, fixing the junction box on there. A lot of those panels can be fixed unless it's completely burned and damaged in the interior of the cell.
Right. Yeah, you touched on this a little bit in terms of what motivates people to sell to you, and obviously the economics of not sending it to the landfill or the economics of recycling plays a part of that. I would also imagine in today's day and age, you mentioned Target, for example, that I think there's probably a little bit of a marketing PR thing where they want to be telling people that they're recycling the solar panels as opposed to them going to the landfills, given how much people are talking now about what to do with excess wind turbine blades and excess solar panels. So I got to
Right.
imagine you're almost a little bit of a marketing goddess coming to them and saying, hey, look at us, we can really help you with this problem.
Yeah, thank goodness that is actually happening more and more. Is it's the social pressure to do the right thing before legislation is going to force them to do the right thing, and that so many companies are having to meet ESG standards, and so the larger companies they cannot afford a PR problem with sending thousands of panels to the landfill. And so they are making company policies now to invest and to pay for the recycling. Now, refurbing and panels that have reuse is just a win-win. And that helps offset the cost of decommissioning. There's quite a cost to that. So does that make sense?
Absolutely, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of an all of the above solution, right? And
Yeah.
I like your point about if you do the right thing before the regulation comes, then you're prepared when the regulation comes. And I think these companies like Target and other retailers, they're smart enough to know that.
Right. Well, that's been my whole push, and I've got several articles out there on the power of social influence. This issue is growing, it's happening very fast, and it will hit us very fast just because of the level of installation that we're seeing right now. And legislation moves very slow. So we can't wait to be legislated to start recycling solar panels.
Mhm.
And so the power of social influence to influence recycling has actually proven in so many different arenas, from water bottles and plastic and things like that. So the same thing goes here. And the ones that are really driving this change, and I'm seeing it every day, are the large scale, utility scale companies that are making the commitments to recycle. They are out there, they are doing it. There's PR out there on it. And because that's happening, we're seeing the smaller companies as well make those commitments, those financial commitments to recycling. And then my job, I really just want to help them. If I can give them money back, I totally want to. And it really funds our business to be able to buy inexpensively solar panels so that we can sell them inexpensively. It's a win-win.
It sounds like it. Sounds like it.
That's another great argument for large scale solar. I like that. Me and Eric have had discussions about this in the past.
So we also offer a warranty as well, a 1-year warranty, just so that we make sure that the customer's getting the panel, that they're hooking it up and it's working. Because whenever you're dealing with thousands, hundreds of thousands of panels, you can't test every single one. We want to make sure that if something goes through and if something's not working, that we guarantee it and get them something else.
Cool, cool. Well, if I recall, you were based in Arizona, which is a state very, very dear to me because I went to grad school in Arizona.
Hey.
I think you have a presence in the Southeast area.
Yes.
So
Yes.
given the growth of FabTech and the growth of the solar industry, I imagine that you guys probably want to, you may have a chance to really have multiple locations as time goes on. Or how do you grow the business as solar is just booming right now and the demand for FabTech services are just going to increase?
Right. So one of the key factors has been to have recycling centers throughout the country. And so we've set up and have partnerships with recyclers that recycle solar panels all over the country. And that is continuing to grow as well, so that if somebody can come to me and I'm going to be able to find the best price at the closest location where I know I've already audited, I already know they're recycling the solar panels, they're doing it correctly, we've already got everything audited, so that they can get the solar panels recycled at the closest location. So I want to see that continue. That will continue to grow. It already is continuing to grow. Over the next few years, there's going to need to be a lot of different infrastructure set up for drop-off points or for pickup points, and that's mainly for smaller scale and residential. There's not a lot of solutions right now for regular homeowner. There just isn't. But at the same time, at least 90% of all solar is not of actual solar panels is coming from large scale projects, not residential. So it is important to solve those problems first, truthfully. We will continue to grow our recycling network throughout the country. And then, so what happens in our other facilities is that becomes a sorting facility where we'll send in panels that have reuse capacity to sort and then to test and then to resell. And so we will have another expansion of that probably in the mid states, maybe Texas or something like that. But not right now, because it's not as important as the recycling network throughout the country that we can work with.
Right. Let me ask one more question. I'm sorry to go off the list, but it's important. We talked a lot about social equity and clean energy and how a lot of low-income families don't have the access to benefiting from clean energy. Is your firm going to be in a position from maybe regulatory environment, wherever, but will you be able to buy solar panels off utility scale that, like you said, may have a little degradation, but could end up on a person's rooftop, like in mass, like low-income neighborhoods in Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, where I'm from? Like, are those programs starting to come about, and will you be able to sell into those?
We would certainly be able to sell into those. It is a good way, because if you consider the cost of used solar panels is probably 25% of the cost of new. But a lot of times that I've seen, even with trying to offer free panels, donate panels or really low cost to different nonprofits, they're still wanting new. And so that's great that they can do that, But where we see it isn't in the organized community developing of areas. It's more like regular Sally and Joe getting solar panels for their house.
People who know the benefit, right?
Yeah.
They could calculate it,
Yeah, and then they also have to then either know how to install that or find a private installer that will do that. But this is all so new. It's going to continue to get better.
I think you guys are definitely ahead of the curve right now, and it's incredible.
Yeah, it's a very exciting, and it does. The satisfying thing on my end is every time something doesn't go to the landfill and it goes like this. The satisfying thing for a lot of people in our company is the customer service of working with so many people that are, they drive up their bus, out front and get these solar panels and they live out of it, and it's just the craziest stories.
We like those. We're all about the crazy stuff.
Great, and places near here in Arizona, Quartzsite, where band dwellers in the hundreds of thousands, it's just this whole massive community and remade school buses and this and that, and they're pretty creative and good characters. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this is great, Janet. I mean, we were talking before about how end of life and sustainability of these panels is such a big deal that hasn't really been addressed. So to see somebody addressing this is just fantastic. It makes me very happy. But we do have a lot of people in our audience that are trying to get more involved in clean energy, wondering how to advance their careers in clean energy. So maybe you can give us some advice from your experience, right? How can people get into the clean energy industry?
Yeah, it's so great. I think it's amazing. I go to trade shows and big events with a lot of people there, and everybody is so young, right? Like, of course, I'm old, so everybody everybody is so young and getting into it, and they're motivated for really good reasons, and they're driven because of their love for the planet and for the environment and wanting to make a change and wanting to make a difference. And I think this is a great field for people to get into, young people to get into, because of the massive opportunity that it's going to present. So, my thing is like, find out what, whatever your natural career goals or natural talent is. Like, some people could be good in accounting, right? Or could be a great electrician or worker in the field or whatever. But just like any industry, there's going to be room for all skills and all different skill levels and all different types of employees, right? All different kinds. So it's like, in my life, and I've been through different careers in my life, it's like you got to get a vision of what you want, and then you just keep moving towards it. One door closes, you go to another door and you open it, and you ask a lot of questions, and you get to know people, and you can make a lot of contacts on LinkedIn by working LinkedIn. When I came on into this, I didn't know one thing about it. I didn't know one person in it, but I just got on, and it was COVID. Like, there was no shows, no networking, nothing. And so I got on LinkedIn and I set up all new profiles and just made friends and talked to a lot of people and just let them know what I did. And it was of interest and created a lot of conversation. So that's great for young kids getting into it as well. Just, you can build whole communities and have conversations and network for jobs, and then take one. Just get in and work your butt off, work hard.
Absolutely.
It's like, do what my mama used to say and my daddy: show up early, work really hard, and go home late. Okay, when you work harder than anybody else, they're gonna, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like that. It's like, you show up and you do well, and you get promoted and you get new opportunities. So
Fantastic. Like, honestly, I think Lucas and I are both very inspired by you personally and by FabTech's mission, because we hear it all the time now. All those cynics about clean energy are starting to criticize, and they say, well, how do you can't recycle this? This going in the landfill. And you guys are proactively preventing that argument from being valid. You're
Right.
really helping the clean tech revolution be as truly sustainable as possible. A year or two ago, we had a battery recycler on who's recycling lithium-ion batteries, and they came out with this new method. So now we're having someone on solar, and really appreciative of what you and FabTech are doing. And I think we'd love to stay in touch and maybe have you on, a year from now, and just find out about where you guys are going and about all the opportunities, because I suspect you're going to be growing significantly. And congratulations to you and your entire family.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's quite a journey, and I'm already seeing this last year so much growth, so many more companies committed to recycling, so many new recyclers coming into the space as well, and it's moving forward, and I'm excited to contribute.
Well, the next time we have you on, though, you got to work on your little bit of your pirate yarn. You can keep the head shake.
I know, right? We should have had a practice thing on there. Did we do it at the end? That we got.
You know what? I think we got to do that before we start recording. We'll do a practice round. So we're going to call it the Janette round to get
Thank you
for
very
people
much.
to practice. But Janette Freeman, thank you so much for being on Pirates of Clean Tech today.
You're so welcome, and thank you for having me, you guys.
And we are back. Janette was fantastic. She really hit the key items that we thought she would talk about, which is the need for recycled solar panels and the fact that there's a burgeoning marketplace for them. So
yeah, it's really great to see that her company is doing that and that they're successful, which is really, really big for me, because I've always been pro sustainability over terms like clean and green and things like that. I'm like, well, you can't claim you're in green energy if you have no end of life plan for your product or your service, right? So to see that we're finally getting kind of end of life recycling and reuse even for solar panels, it just makes me super happy.
I used to feel the same about when I was touching, not directly involved, but in project finance in the energy industry, like these big oil and gas projects. I always felt that there should be a reserve in the project price such that at 30 years, when a certain refinery is done, it has to get decommissioned and deconstructed instead of just sitting out there being an eyesore.
Yeah, like a nuclear power plant.
Yeah. This is on a much smaller scale, but recycling wind turbines, recycling solar panels, this is all great. And I agree with your definition of sustainability. This is truly sustainable.
Yeah, so on the video here, you can check out fabtech.net is their website. Really interesting website. Yeah, they talk about Savannah. They have a great oh, you can see some of these panels that just look
Isn't that
good.
amazing how many are out there?
Look at them after. It's
Yeah.
like, what? How'd they do that?
You know, and you heard me touch on it towards the end. I'd like to see cities out there, especially cities with lower income neighborhoods, really work on a program to get rooftop solar on people's houses or on local community centers, et cetera, that are recycled, right?
Yeah.
You think about it, if these are down to 70% degradation after 10 years, okay, instead of 10 panels, you need 13, right, for the same thing, but at 25% of the cost of a new panel,
Right.
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. And look at this. They
You're
say they
still-
have a 95% salvage rate. That's insane.
That's really good to hear. You know, I worried about the not the degradation of the PV itself, but about the panel starting to come apart a little bit. But you know, these utility scale solar farms have rack systems that are very strong, very stringent. They withstand the elements, so those panels are generally protected, right? I'm still amazed that you know, panels are getting pulled off rooftops at 10 years. I want to give a shout out to my little startup, right? Because we think our product can last 30, 40 years. And so 10 years does surprise me a little bit. It would be nice to see those stay on a little longer. But if 90%, 95% of them are being salvaged and recycled, fine, absolutely fine.
But that means people that don't go to them, 95% of these panels that they're throwing away, they shouldn't be thrown away. So that's pretty crazy. And I also see here they have 100% landfill free policy. So that means if they can't reuse them, they are either recycled or remineralized to be used back for new products. So that's fantastic.
It does remind me of when we had Li-Cycle on, who was recycling lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah.
You just you crush this stuff down to its bare elements still. And I think that's what happens here between the glass and the silicon and you know, the wiring, et cetera. Like you can just crush and separate.
Yeah, and I seem to remember he had a shockingly high recovery rate too. So this is amazing. Yeah.
I think it's great. Just love seeing it. And again, it just puts the pundits off. Because the pundits, you can't recycle wind turbine blades. What are we reading about? Recycling wind turbine blades, right?
Yep.
Get it, guys. The industry is 2 steps ahead. This is what happens when you get young people who are motivated and intelligent.
There you go. They're working hard. I like her working hard message too.
She's great. I hope to have her on again.
Yeah. Okay, you want to get into your articles?
Yes, before we get into articles though, we're going to do a little patting on the back. Bot driven patting on the back. Because I don't even remember. What was the name of the publication?
I don't remember.
Well, it was a very good, well-regarded podcast publication. Ranked the Pirates of Clean Tech the 8th best podcast for clean technology on the planet. Not just a little old US, measly North America, on the planet.
In the world.
Yes. We're trying to save the planet, so it's only appropriate that the Pirates are 8th best on the planet.
All right. I'm still waiting for my fame dividend. It hasn't hit me yet.
Yes, come on. So I'm going to go right in. It looks like we're going into my articles first.
Yeah.
This is hot off the press. This is controversial. It's been out there for 48 hours now.
Oh.
Rowan Atkinson, the man we all know as Mr. Bean, is an automotive junkie and an engineer by training. And he wrote an article in the Guardian publication in the UK, quote, June 3rd, I love electric vehicles and was an early adopter, but increasingly I feel duped. And let me tell you something, this is a great article because he makes a lot of valid points about the cost of batteries, about the industrial complex not being able to adapt fast enough, with other alternative fuel solutions being out there, about keeping your old petrol car maybe better than an EV. And I think we just talked about it a little bit as to reasons as to why, the cost of manufacturing, the cost of scrapping. He went out there and he caused some controversy by putting this out there. And what I've been very offended by has been some of the green journalists out there tearing him apart and not doing it by deconstructing his article, but by simply saying he's wrong. And that really offended me, because this is an educated man with great experience who wrote a very well-written article talking about the pros and cons of buying electric, even though he is a fan of electric. These conversations need to be had. We need to have a forum in which we discuss the pros and cons of everything related to clean technology so that we can make smarter decisions going forward in order to achieve 2050. The fact that people ganged up on him because he was, quote, anti-green or anti-EV is really offensive. And I just want to say hats off to Rowan Atkinson. I think we should have him on our podcast next week to get his message out a little bit further. But it's a really good article, and I recommend people to read it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read this because we just brought this in, but he makes some very good points. I am really excited about the Formula One going synthetic fuel in 2026. I think that's what racing is supposed to do. They're supposed to innovate new solutions and be kind of an R&D field for the auto industry. So, you know, that could be, like he says, virtually carbon neutral and wouldn't require major changes to our automotive infrastructure. So, yeah, I'd have to look at some of these. I'm sure some of these I'm a little dubious about, like the there's way more greenhouse gas emissions in the production of an electric car. I've seen that argument before, and if you dig into it, it's not exactly as clean as what he states. But yeah, I mean, EVs aren't perfect, and we can't go around thinking EVs are perfect, right? So I'm with him on that.
Yeah, again, I'm sure there's statistics here that we would both disagree with, right? And I think it's duly noted about the carbon costs of making an electric vehicle. I'm sorry, if an auto assembly plant has rooftop solar, okay, and the second one
Right.
down the street doesn't,
Right.
You can't say it's apples to apples, right? Obviously,
Right.
it's not. But I just think he's got a lot of points here. I think he's simply saying, he talks about solid state batteries, which I have a vested interest in. People should know that. But solid state batteries may be a way more efficient battery, and maybe we should hold off and wait for those, as opposed to really pouring everything into creating a lithium ion only infrastructure that once we over create it, OEMs aren't going to want to change away from it. I honestly, for me, it was a great article, but it was also more important that he gets his soapbox to stand on and to actually give an intelligent argument and not have people throw tomatoes at him simply because he's going against the tide right now.
Yeah, I mean, you should use it to engage in discussion, right?
Yep.
And have a constructive discussion about it.
Yep.
Yep.
Telling you, more and more, I'm starting to like hybrids more and more.
Yeah, I don't know if I have been looking at a full-size SUV hybrid, and I found one rated for 50 miles per gallon.
Which one is that?
For I'll have to dig it up, but crazy. I don't. I want to look into this, but that would be awesome.
One is out there. You know, there's a real full size out there. It's been out there for a few years, but it just doesn't have the brand panache it used to. It's Mitsubishi. Mitsubishi has a full size SUV that's a plug-in hybrid.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm definitely looking into that.
All right. Yeah. So if you recall, when we had last week's guest, we had the great group from the Virgin Islands Energy Office. We ran so long, we didn't get to articles. So these are slightly dated, but they're a little bit of a hangover from there, but they're still worth talking about. This one is from PV Magazine, May 16th. The hydrogen stream, green hydrogen market could hit 850 billion in 2050. You know, this kind of actually plays a little bit to Rowan Atkinson's article, right? Which is, why are we dismissing hydrogen and not giving it a chance? And we have been very careful to be overly pro hydrogen or not, because it almost feels like a little bit of a tulip euphoria from the Netherlands. But when you read this article and you're talking about, you know, global ammonia production, you're talking about, you know, how much that's risen, how much hydrogen is a tangential product from that can actually be used and deployed in the green energy. There's just a lot that's being said in this article. And again, I just wanted to bring it out there a little bit on the needed to refresh a little bit on this article. but there's enough out there to tell me that we should not be discounting hydrogen just quite yet. And I think it's really on us. We need to get a hydrogen expert on this podcast soon. People are just talking about it so much. We really got to find somebody.
Yeah. And I would say a similar thing to what we just said about EVs. Hydrogen also is not the perfect solution for everything. Analysts are going to have to get their spreadsheets out and run some numbers and find the best applications for this. And I'm sure hydrogen will have good applications. We just need to figure out what those are and get into that as soon as possible. Like here, global ammonia production, it's great for, the fertilizers, a higher density energy than hydrogen itself. You can make out of hydrogen. So I'm sure there are a lot of interesting solutions that will come out.
100% agree with that. So good article. We'll keep going on it. All right. My last article, I think this is from Forbes. Yeah, May 17th. From luxury to necessity, how data can help democratize green buildings. And this again, now I have a little bit of a vested interest here because I've been following what I call the fourth estate now of clean energy. First it was wind turbines and solar farms and electric vehicles, and now everybody is talking about green buildings. Buildings account for 40% of all greenhouse gas emissions, according to the World Green Building Council. That's both the construction of the materials themselves and in the operations of the buildings. So given the fact that there's also a significant housing shortage in the United States and I think other parts of the world, there's going to be a need to build new green buildings, and we need to get in front of those to make sure they're as green as possible. Again, I have a vested interest because my company Soloblock is going to sell into that once we get operational. So please take that with a grain of salt. But we need all the above solutions, and it's amazing to see the innovation happening in the green building, or now they call it the built environment space, where everything from the design of the buildings are getting smarter to just being more efficient, but also the materials being used are way more efficient. The systems, the technology, from smart metering to HVAC systems that just use much less electricity to insulation on both the windows and the buildings themselves, everything is being in play right now. And that's really going to help buildings decarbonize. He uses democratize. And I think that's also going to what he was talking about in this article, which is the author, which is we're way short. We need to be really building more structures and more single family and multifamily homes in this country. So we got to make sure we do it where lower income families who are also disproportionately being impacted by the increase in rents are being able to access homes and apartments that are going to be the best practices possible in green buildings so that they can benefit from the revolution. So great article. Trevor Dreyer is the author of it, and he deserves accolades for just bringing this out.
Yeah, so I love this aspect of green building. I'm very pro data, obviously. If you're linked in with me, you know I am. And yeah, I've looked into this actually, and it's amazing that there really is no accepted data standard for green buildings as of last time I checked. And you can actually look at my book chapter from Wiley IEEE Press. I go into the different types of data streams that we need to come in, and it's a broad spectrum of data that we need to manage. And there are some standards proposed, like BEDS, for example, BEDS, a building energy data standard. So if you're in the green building industry, I would invite you to investigate this, try and make sure your data can fit into a data standard, and try to get this data flowing so that we have more understanding of what's going on in green buildings and how we can improve them and utilize them better.
This is the revolution that we need to imagine. At 40% of greenhouse gases coming from buildings. I love the fact that data can help us get to where we need to go. And this goes back to the argument we were making about Rowan Atkinson and even about Janette Freeman as our guest. Data is going to help us make better decisions about how to allocate capital in order to achieve the goals we need to achieve. And again, I think this is a great article regarding that.
There you go. We just solved the whole thing right there.
That's it. But we got your articles. Let's go.
Okay. All right. My older articles that we didn't get to last time, actually both from CNBC, which is kind of weird, CNBC.com.
Oh, CNBC.
But they really caught my eye. So Here's the first one from Diana Olick. Abandoned coal mines may be gold mines, so to speak, for geothermal energy. I thought this was amazing. Again, going with the theme of reuse and recycle, take the old and convert it into the new. So I thought this was great. Another opportunity for coal country to come into the green energy revolution, utilize their assets, and participate in the energy transition, lead the energy transition. So I thought this was great.
Again, I got so angry during the birth of the clean tech revolution 10 years ago, when people were saying, wait a second, we have these West Virginian coal jobs, et cetera. Well, first off, coal jobs are only 3% of West Virginia's employment base right now. Coal was starting to die out there because of the economics, the deepness of the mining, all this stuff. Here's something where Senator Joe Manchin, instead of being obstructionist, and I don't think he has been on clean energy, to his credit, but he should be promoting this because this disproportionately affects a part of the country that was benefiting economically from carbonizing our skies, right? Here we can do something about it and create jobs and opportunity, economic value for people in West Virginia and in, not necessarily in the West, because that's more of a kind of what they call it, surface mining. But the coal mines, throughout the Midwest and Appalachia, this is a great idea.
Yeah.
Look at that. In Ohio, there are more than 4,000 abandoned mines.
Look at that. Yeah, and they're saying they can store heat, they can cool water, they can heat water. I mean, it depends on, I guess, where you put it in the mine. I don't know. It's great.
Incredible.
Anyhow, another one from CNBC.com. This is recycling end-of-life solar panel. What a coincidence. Wind turbines is about to be climate tech's big waste business. This is from Bob Woods, May 13. Gee, wow. Who would have thought, right?
We're with you, Bob.
So we're right with you on this one, Bob. Currently, about 90% of end of life for defective solar panels end up in landfills, which is what we just saw. And we know that most of those don't even have to go there, largely because it costs far less to dump them than recycle them. So thank God we have people like Janette and Solar Cycle CEO Shuvi Sharma here, really addressing this problem and getting us to a circular, sustainable economy, which I love.
This is great. Well, I mean, obviously, Bob, we're with you, buddy. This is exactly what we need to be talking about. We don't have to say it again. Just, this is great. Solar Cycle, there's another company. Never heard of them.
And I did sneak in one brand new one. This is from a couple of days ago, June 5th. China projects to trap 1.5 million tons of carbon. Chinese projects to trap 1.5 million tons of carbon and now online. This is from Interesting Engineering, but there's many different outfits from Amaya Malaysia. On June 5th, China turned on one of their largest carbon capture and sequestration projects, which is amazing. And it really makes me happy to see them taking steps forward on this. They have not been leading on reduction of coal use, although I have seen indications of coal use is on the decline in Poland, for instance, and maybe we'll see in India. So maybe some interesting leadership there. But we see China here leading on carbon capture and sequestration. So I think that's great. Very happy to see this. We definitely need more CCS. We can look at CO2 concentration in the atmosphere again if you want. It is still going up. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. We need to do more of this.
Yeah, well, I was going to make a joke about are they pumping the carbon in a pipeline underneath Taiwan to somehow elevate Taiwan? Boo. We need China. We need China to be making electric vehicles to decarbonize their environment. When I lived in China, they used to boast about how they had the most installed wind turbines in any given year, but they weren't hooked up to the grid. The grid was so far remote in these mountainous areas. They were building wind turbines just to say they are, but they weren't hooked up. So now China is starting to be more of the mature player. They're acting legitimately in this particular regard, which is carbon capture. I still would like to see an overall report on carbon capture on the cost of doing it relative to its actual benefit.
Yeah.
But I think we got to be working on prototyping these technologies, right? Like that massive one in Switzerland, for example. We got to keep working on these. So it's a good story.
Yeah, I mean, we really you really have to get the cost of CCS aligned with the price of carbon credits. Otherwise, there's kind of no point, right? So it's good to
Yeah.
see. It says they're getting down to $35 a ton. That seems pretty good.
Yeah, and look, they're talking about the reuse of the carbon itself, like that, injecting it into beverages. Which cracks me up because we're supposed to not be drinking as much cola. Although I'm not giving up on it.
It's gin and tonic season over here, so I'm
G and
okay with
T,
it. G&T summer, yep.
G and T with our. Holy crap! It looks like the apocalypse outside my window right now with all this yellow haze from the wildfires up in Canada. So
Yeah, I know.
I guess we can go. I guess I can get a trash can and probably collect some carbon in the atmosphere right now.
Oh, it's so bad here. We can smell it. You can smell it inside. It's
You smell it. We have our house. We have two really good air purifiers and one crap one. Folks. Honestly, if you have pets outdoors, you may want to consider bringing them indoors. I mean, this air quality situation is bad.
yeah.
An article we didn't talk about because it's not really relevant to clean tech. Scientists in Australia have determined that the more household plants you have in your house, the less chance you have of getting cancer.
That one makes sense.
Because household plants do such a great job of absorbing all the toxins from indoor air.
Well, I
So-
heard, well, I certainly believe that, let alone volatile organic compounds, VOCs. Yeah, I think that's the big one.
I agree. So we don't have as many indoor plants because our house is oddly shaped that one side gets a lot of sun, the other side, which is the living room, does not. But nonetheless,
Yeah, we have a lot in our big bay window, which gets a lot of sun. So
I think this is a great podcast. Really hats off to Janette Freeman at FabTech. I think I called the company Freeman at one point, but that's okay. She'll be taking it over the way she has so much enthusiasm.
and I called her Janet, so we're one for one, each of us.
We do go 2 weeks between podcasts and we get rested. That's why we need an advertising agency and a production agency. So for those of you out there listening, 8th best podcast.
We weren't too bad. I think we were worse last week. So
Maybe so.
Editing.
We've had 2 great guests in a row now, so we're really happy about that.
yeah, and they weren't mine; they were yours. So I'm kind of behind the curve.
We seem to go in waves. You'll have 3 or 4, then I'll have 3 or 4. But
Okay.
before we wrap up, we have to say, of course, we didn't really talk about too many public companies, but any companies in which have underlying public or tradable securities, we are not making a recommendation on the securities one way or the other. Please consult with a registered professional investment representative before making any investment decisions on clean energy or energy companies.
Yep, and you can find us on your favorite podcast venue. Search for Pirates of Clean Tech. We're on about a dozen different podcast venues, and you click the follow or subscribe button, and then you also click the like button if you really like the show and you learn something, and you go on, and then after that you go and tell all your friends and family about it. We're also on YouTube if you want to follow along on the articles with us and see our beautiful mugs. You go to YouTube, search for Pirates of Clean Tech. Again, you click subscribe and you click the little alarm bell so you get the notifications on your phone when the episode hits.
Exactly. And jokes aside, we just want to thank our audience more and more. You guys always support us. I don't think we deserve the support we get from you, but we get a lot of feedback and commentary from everybody. And we really appreciate that. So as long as you're happy, we're going to be pumping these things out and having a good time doing it.
Yeah, and obviously I was joking about the fame. We don't do this for fame. We do this because we love talking about this stuff. We would do this anyhow. So
Exactly right. So
it's great to have you guys here with us. So
exactly. With that, I'm Eric Planey.
I'm Lucas Finko.
And we are the Pirates of Clean Tech. Yar!
Lucas with Eric.